Alright everybody, and welcome to another episode of Would I Buy? It is a show where I basically try out some of the later demos, give off some of my experiences that I had with the demo, and then I would make a decision then on whether I would buy it myself, whether I could wait for a sale, or whether I could leave it alone. And with this one, we are looking at Fuga, Melodies of Steel. Now, I did actually originally look at the picture on this one, and to be fair, when I actually first saw it, when it came to the battle pictures, I kind of had the impression and thought that it was going to be something a little bit like Advanced Wars. I don't know, I kind of got the feeling it was going to be a bit of a strategy game. And when I started playing it, it really got into the action straight away. And it basically seems like it's a group of children. And when I say children, I mean dog children or animal children. I'm not quite sure what all the animals were. I think they were all dogs because it looks as if it's set in World War times. And the enemies are is it the Burman? Something like that, the Burman. I can't fully remember. And yeah, obviously this is very much trying to tell a story about World War times, but obviously in a bit more light-hearted fashion. And yeah, it actually was not like a strategy game at all. It seemed to be more in a similar fashion to the other video game that I played recently, the Overrogue, where it looked like you worked your way through, I suppose you could say, a labyrinth type thing, if I were to use the term from the Overrogue game, where you essentially moved further forward across a set path. There's no roaming around from what I could tell, and at set points you take on board the combat. And unlike the Overrogue, which I'd recently played, this is more like an actual traditional RPG in terms of its battle. And I kind of liked it. I liked the battle system on this. It seems to give off the impression that you could sort of swap around. I like the idea around it. I will be honest, I got a little bit confused by it. I didn't fully understand it all. It was a lot of text and a lot of tutorial trying to explain, like, well, add this character with this character, and that wasn't obviously very helpful to me at that point because I didn't know who the characters were. Because it just jumped you straight into the action, it's like, well, put this character with this character because this and that, and I'm like, why? I don't know who these characters are. Why? What? And it basically were just throwing out, oh, well, these get jumps in these stats, it gives a boost in this and gives a boost in your accuracy. I'm like, I didn't have a clue, to be honest. Sometimes I love the idea where you get your tutorial like that and it tells you what to do. That's fine, but I kind of found that when I was playing this game, it was very much overkill of the tutorial, just telling you what to do, this and that, and explaining you, oh, well, do this and that because of this reason. And I didn't really get it why. When it comes to the actual statistics part of it, I just didn't really fully understand how that made that stat better. It kind of rushed into it, I suppose you could say. And it's a bit of a shame because when it came to the combat, there's certain things where it tried to explain a tutorial that I kind of just had to figure out for myself. The tutorial kind of didn't help me. It kind of actually hindered me a little bit, to be honest, rather than actually just letting me play and experiment and get to know it. And I suppose you could say the more I actually played it, the more I got used to it, especially when it came up to the boss. I will say that from what I played it can be quite a challenging game, and it took quite a couple of attempts when it came to a boss where I had to really figure out myself. I think it had tried to explain, but because it just rushed into it without fully allowing you to grasp it. Maybe it was just me, it was being a bit derpy at the time, I don't know. But kind of had to figure it out myself. I mean, after I did, I kind of enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. And when it came to the story and the characters itself, because of the period that it was set in, I actually did enjoy it as well. I kind of liked the characters and the dialogue that they exchanged. So it kind of made it a little bit more interesting, which is good, because with the story, especially considering it's supposed to be like an RPG, in that respect, I suppose you do want a semi-good. I mean, it's not the be-all and end-all for me. I mean, I've already said in like other ones, war is not usually my favourite type. It's not that it's a bad subject, but sometimes they can be so generic, like, oh, all these factions all over taking over, and I kind of lose track. This is the kind of story that I like, where it's told more down to earth. It's not told from the perspective of a big giant general, or at least not in the demo that I've noticed. It just seems to be told from the perspective of a bunch of children that have found a big giant tank and have essentially just headed on the way. I don't even know where they're going. I'm presuming that the story will get rather intriguing as it goes along. So it is interesting to see how it goes when it comes to the strategy. I admit, yes, it was challenging, but not in a bad way. There were certain times where I was playing, I kind of wish I could have beefed myself up, and it doesn't seem as if I can do that, at least not from what I could tell. Whether I can go back to previous sections and replay it, I don't know. If you do, I really hope so, because that would be really good and really goes in its favour. And yeah, when it came to beating the boss, it kind of required a little bit of playing about, and it tells you essentially that you can revert back. You lose all your progress from before certain checkpoints, which I kind of like, that it had a sort of checkpoint and it sort of gave that little bit of, you know, you wanted to progress forward, and it's a little bit element of you learn a little bit more if you fail that time and then you go at it again. Now, the only problem I kind of had, no, it's not really a problem, to be honest. I like the function of where it comes to developing relationships with your characters, because it seems like during these intermissions you can essentially level up your relationships with other characters. You can do like fishing and basically get certain scrap, which I think you'll use to, you know, implement and craft other equipment. And I liked that function, that it allowed you to develop relationship with others, because as you built up your relationships, it essentially gave you the opportunity to gain new skills. And obviously when you go into battle with these relationships, if you play about with your characters, depending on the level of the relationship between those two characters, you developed and gained certain perks, I suppose you could say, or skills from that relationship, and I kind of liked that aspect of it. So it does seem to give you a lot of control over that, well, it just seems to give you that element of control over your strategy. I mean, it was a little bit frustrating, which I think is what I was going into. It was a little bit frustrating because you could essentially spend ages trying to talk with all your characters, you build up their levels, and then you go into it and you realise actually you are still failing miserably at that boss. And obviously it does give you the chance to continue on from after the intermission and just go straight into the battle, but it's a little bit frustrating that you can either only go straight after the battle where you've done all your built up all your relationships, or just before where you've not built up any relationships, and it kind of makes you feel like you're stuck having to try and build up all those relationships again. If you wanted to develop and swap about your, well, essentially, if you wanted to level up different skills instead, you can do that, and that's good that you can, but it can be a little bit of a drag in order to restart it and then having to slowly build your way up, which wouldn't be so bad if it was very simple that you just jump, level up, level up, level up. That's fine. But it kind of gives you lots of opportunities where it says you get a boost between the characters, where it sort of shows a little bit of dialogue between the characters. And that wouldn't be so bad, but when I were doing that, it happened very frequently. And sometimes it's like, I know it sounds really, really bad when you see loads of dialogue, but sometimes I would just kind of feel like, oh my god, I don't want to listen to this dialogue, and I was like wanting to skip it. And that was a little bit frustrating because I kind of felt like I wish I could have just avoided that and just literally leveled up. I wish, at the same time, I really don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I just kind of wish I could have easily leveled up rather than having to completely lose all my progress. I might have just wanted to switch a few things around, I don't know. Or better yet, it would have been nice to be able to go back, restart the whole labyrinth with the skills that I've got, and just play through the whole entire labyrinth again, but with a slightly better skill set. I don't know. That's my preference. I mean, obviously, you might be able to do that as time goes on, but based on my experience there, it was a little bit frustrating. So that being said, that was when the combat ends. In between all that, it sent me to the world map, where obviously you then get the opportunity to go into towns. I think you can then like forge new equipment and do trading in the shop. And that's where I think you get a little bit more story in between. And then it's obviously off to the next path. And obviously down the path you get the typical situation where you can go on branching paths. And you get different rewards based on the path that you go on. You can go on the easier path, get less reward, or go on the slightly more challenging path with more challenging enemies and get bigger reward. And I like that system. I just kind of wish that sometimes I could have just done that, made a little bit of progress, decided, oh, I'm not doing very well here, I'm struggling, and then kind of just decided to back out with the relationships that we've got. Now, I'm not saying that that's impossible. It might be able to do that, but based on my experience there, I wasn't sure if I could, and that became a little bit frustrating there. However, I don't want to completely write off the game and say that I didn't enjoy it, because I did enjoy it, but then obviously I saw the price of the game, and that's where it kind of got me a little bit. Now, if this was something like, say, like £15 or £20 game, I don't mind it. I think I'd have enjoyed it because it's, it's nice artwork, some good character dialogue and everything, and the gameplay itself is fun. It is challenging. But this, with it being the price of going up more towards a more AAA type game, it was like over £30. And I'm like, well, it's a little bit steep, is that? And it's a shame, because I think I probably would enjoy it as it got further, but I don't know if I'd want to spend so much on that. I know I sound like I'm really bad there, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm not liking the game, but I just kind of get the feeling that that price, from what I saw and what I played, it's a little bit steep. Especially when I think I played that other game, that Overrogue, and yeah, okay, the artwork might not be as great as this one or the story, but you know, this is like nearly triple the price, and I just kind of think, ooh, it's a little bit, yeah, it's just a little bit too much. So if it came to me, I would play it at some point in time, but I think personally I could kind of wait on this. I think I'd probably wait for a sale for it to come down. I don't think I could justify paying over £30, like nearly the price of a AAA. There's stuff in there that I like, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reward, and it seems like there's a lot of decent progression, but I just kind of feel as if there could be a little bit more to it for that price point. And that sounds bad when I say that. I feel bad for saying that. But of course, obviously, that is my opinion. I mean, how about you guys? Have you played the demo? I would urge you to play the demo. I think you probably would enjoy it if you do like RPGs, or you do like that strategy and the turn-based battles. I would say give it a chance. It might get better that I'm unaware of, I'm not sure, but I would not pay the money to find that out. I'd rather just wait for a sale regardless. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, so I will leave it at that. Let me know if you have played it, or whether you really enjoyed it, or whether I have been a really bad person for slating it. I'm sorry. And until then, I will see you guys on the next one. Laters.
まさか無念だ。やれやれ。
連れ去られた村のみんなを助けるため、それは同時にベルマン帝国軍の人間を倒し、やれやれ。よし、行こう。 みんな油断しないで。気をつけましょう。 れで大丈夫よ。あなたの負けなのです。これで
みんなお疲れ様。
よし行こう。